The Bank of Albania has seen an extraordinary amount of change in its first 100 years. And this century is the ideal opportunity to reflect on the central bank's past and the country's future. The momentous events of the 20th century, from 2 world wars to the rise of communism in the East, all swept through Albania and its institutions. But one of the most profound changes for the central bank came with the turbulent transition to democracy and a market economy in the early 90s. During that transition, inflation soared, exceeding 200% in 1992. The central bank faced one of its greatest challenges in restoring monetary stability, and it stepped forward to meet that challenge head-on, raising interest rates sharply to bring real rates to positive territory with the aim of bringing inflation down. The Bank of Albania was helped in its efforts when key legislation in 1997 empowered it with operational independence and a resolute price stability mandate. By the end of the 90s, inflation had been reduced to single digits, driven by its decisive measures. The risk that inflation expectations should ever become de-anchored tends to keep central bankers awake at night. And that risk is more acute in countries like Albania, where memories of hyperinflation lie in the not-so-distant past. But thanks to the institutional credibility gained by the Bank of Albania's actions and its inflation-targeting framework, a new normal had arrived when the 21st century inflation averaged between 2% and 3% from the turn of the millennium to the time of the pandemic. That is not to say that these years were easy. Far from it. Albania experienced shocks during this period. The global financial crisis, for example, left the country's largely foreign-owned banking system with a high level of non-performing loans. But Albania emerged stronger from those challenges, due in part to the central bank's actions to safeguard financial stability over the years. It has introduced capital buffers and liquidity coverage regulations to align more closely with Basel III and EU prudential standards. And earlier this year, it implemented macroprudential measures to contain potential risks stemming from the housing market. The success of the Bank of Albania also mirrors the country's wider progress in recent decades. In 1995, GDP per capita was less than 15% of the EU average in purchasing power terms. Since then, it has more than doubled to 35%, though this still leaves significant potential for further catch-up. Rising living standards have been underpinned by Albania's growing openness to trade, with trade as a share of GDP increasing from less than 1/5 in 1990 to well over 3/4 today. The country's close ties with the EU have played a role in this success. These ties are both economic and institutional. For instance, the European Union now accounts for 72% of Albania's goods exports and over half of its imports, underscoring how embedded the country has become in European value chains. The European Central Bank and the entire European system of central banks are also supporting central banks in the Western Balkans on their path towards European integration. We foster the integration of the region's countries into the single euro payment area and into European payment system infrastructures, for instance, the TIPS clone. We engage in technical cooperation to enhance central banks' institutional capacity, and we contribute to the economic dialogue between the European Union and regional partners. As Albania moves forwards and towards an ever closer relationship with the European Union, it will be essential that the country maintains a firm commitment to sound policies and credible institutions. I look forward to our continued cooperation on this journey, and allow me to to end by congratulating the Bank of Albania on its centenary anniversary. Thank you very much and enjoy the conference.